yourself not paying attention? Drifting off into that other world? Or has someone ever said to you, pay attention? There's a reason we need to pay attention to certain things. It could be for our safety or getting directions from someone. Sometimes we need to know what's happening, what's going on. So we must pay attention and be alert. There's been a lot said in the last 10 years about texting and how it keeps us from paying attention while we drive. I remember back when I was driving, it was all about eating and driving. What about pets and driving? I've actually seen that. It's hard enough to pay attention to your driving when the car is full of your kids. Anybody relate to that, Mandy? Candy? But now there's a new distraction that's even scarier than the others. And by that I mean realizing that other drivers on the road are doing this. A survey of 7,000 young British drivers from the age of 18 to 24 found that texting and talking are only part of the dangers posed by smartphones in cars. According to the survey conducted by Ford, 1 in 3 drivers admit to taking a selfie while driving. Now that means taking a picture of yourself if no one knows what that means. And we also know that this is happening in America too, not just there. The truth is we pay attention to what matters most to us. So here's a question. As a Christian, what are you paying attention to? Have you ever spent an entire day paying attention to what God was doing around you? Do you stop and think about what God is doing? What if God was nudging you to participate in something He was doing? Would you know what He's doing? Imagine being alert and ready, watching for God moving in people's lives, listening for God's voice through people, sounds, music, movies, the internet, the news, ready to move when God calls us to act. The truth is, we know how to pay attention when we want to. In fact, we're really good at it. Whenever someone we love is in the hospital, we pay attention. Whenever that baby is due, we pay attention. Whenever the doctor gives us news from those tests we've been waiting on, we pay attention. If it's something to do with our money, we pay attention. If it's a crisis regarding one of our family members, we pay attention. And if it's a matter of life and death, we pay attention. But what would it look like for just one day if we were to pay attention to what God was doing around us? What would we look for? What would we listen for? Would there be a tension rising up inside if we saw something God was doing and our help was needed? Let's face it, being available an entire day to God would be hard to do. We have responsibilities. We have a life. What if we just took a few moments out of our day to notice what was happening around us? What if you saw someone badly hurt and in need of help? Would it matter who it was? Would it matter if it happened while you were in the middle of doing something? What if you were on a lunch break from work? What if you were on your way to an appointment in Twin Falls? What if you were tending to your livestock or in your garden or at work? Or maybe you're spending that day you've been waiting for to spend with your grandkids. What would you do if you saw someone badly hurt and in need of help and you were busy?
Hey, Dad, you see that guy over there? I think he's hurt.
He probably is. That's what alcohol will do to you, son.
No, I mean, look at the blood on his chin.
Well, he probably just fell down.
Oh, there they are. I'll see you tomorrow.
Have fun. Okay. And, yeah. Take James to breakfast. Tell him the deacons think he's doing a good job with the youth ministry.
Hey, you guys, hold up! Hey, sir? Hey, sir? Sir, are you okay? There's not much we can do here. We'll get some breakfast.
The youth pastor noticed the injured man, and a tension began to build inside. A tension that tugged on his heart, but he was soon pulled away from that tension when he convinced himself there was nothing he could do. Besides, he had a youth group waiting on him to go to breakfast. He felt enough of their tension to walk away from the man. What would you do?
Wait here, my friend. Okay?
With him, my friend.
Excuse me, but you were with the older gentleman, I believe?
Yes.
Oh, good news. Your friend is going to be fine. He's had some intracranial bleeding, and he's got some fluid on his lungs. It's a good thing he got here when he did. He's stable now, but we're going to need to watch him overnight.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Would it be possible to see him?
Sure. I can take you there now if you'd like.
Thank you. Right, it's coming out.
Two people noticed how others react to this man's situation. The boy and the taxi driver. Now the taxi driver is looked upon as shady and not trustworthy. There's a feeling of question regarding this man just because of how he looks. But out of all the people who saw the injured man, the taxi driver gave attention to the tension. The taxi... The taxi driver stopped, checked the man's condition, and treated the man's wounds and bandaged him. The taxi driver used what he had to bind the wounds and his own water to wash the wounds. The taxi driver was waiting for customers. He was working when he saw what was happening. We saw another man in the video coming to get a taxi, and he told him to go on down to another one. He turns the man down and sends him to another taxi down the street in order to help the man. He made the choice to lose money. That was his livelihood. He could have left him there, but he made the choice to participate. He even used his taxi to take the man to the hospital. He even waits for the man to hear how the man is doing, and then takes extra time to go visit the man. His day became a God day. He was experiencing life with God controlling his day, not fitting God in his day when it was convenient. He paid attention to the tension. He did all that he possibly could, and by doing that, he touched others. Have you ever noticed how people can experience the same event and yet have opposite reactions? Some people can keep going while others just give up and quit. Some people go through difficult struggles and ask, "Why me, Lord? What did I do to deserve this?" While others see that time as God teaching them something. What if the events that occurred in your life had something to do with what God was doing around you? Amazing things happen when we pay attention. Too many times we make a decision based on what we want to happen. The truth is, we cannot see the whole picture. And we won't understand what God is doing if we're not paying attention. God has given us simple principles to use to help us make good decisions. But it's up to us to use them. Here are 3 principles that can help you when making decisions. First, am I being completely honest with myself? When we really want something, or like something the way it is, we tend to justify the reason to have it, to keep it, or do it. But is what I want conflicting with what God may be doing around me? Here are my choices making a situation harder for those that are around me. Next, every season of your life is eventually a story that you can tell. Make a decision as if you're looking back on it. Will there be negative consequences from my decision? Which brings us to the third one. Is there a tension that needs my attention? Is this decision causing a tension inside of me or others around me? Why? Is there something in your spirit nudging you to do something? Maybe it's telling you that something's not quite right. Pay attention to the tension. Your first reaction may be to overlook it. But what is God doing in it? Are you paying attention to God? Or paying attention to the things you want to happen for your benefit? I'd like you to try something. The next time you make a decision, or maybe there's a decision that you're trying to make right now, and it's causing tension in your life. Stop and think. Does this tension need your attention? Maybe there's something you've overlooked. It may be something so small that it doesn't even seem big enough to consider. Step back and look at it again. Take some time in prayer about it. Take it all in completely and address the tension that you're feeling. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from God? If it's not, where? What is it wanting you to do? Stop? Go? Wait? Don't make the mistake of ignoring it, telling yourself it's nothing to worry about. Our self wants us to pay more attention to the things that will benefit us the most. We don't want to do things that will take our time or are inconvenient. But too often love is inconvenient, isn't it? And love requires our time. I bet everyone here has a story about a time they didn't pay attention to attention. A time they wish they could do over again. A chance to make a bad decision good. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if God would just let us know what was going to happen? David said, "Just tell me what to do and I will do it, Lord. As long as I live, I will wholeheartedly obey." What if the tension you're experiencing is God telling you to step back and rethink it? Would you pause and pay attention? God may be trying to get your attention right now. He warns us time after time, but too many times we will take control of the situation, especially when we feel that tension. And then we get to face the consequences of our quick decisions. Our quick decisions are based on our own desires and wisdom. And when we do this, many times we can miss what God is doing around us. As in the case of Saul before he became Paul. Saul was a Pharisee and he was very zealous. Although he claimed to be a Roman citizenship, he was also Jewish. He knew the Jewish law and traditions. Now Saul was moving up in position and he was extremely zealous. And this was what his attention was on, devoting his life to the study of the books of the law. He wasn't paying attention to what God was doing around him. In fact, he saw the followers of Jesus as a threat to his faith, and he dealt with them harshly. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, the Christians, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." God was telling Saul to pay attention. God is always with you. You just need to pay attention. God has called each of us to obedience, to surrender our lives to Him. And He invites us to participate in what He's doing. But it's up to us to pay attention and respond to those opportunities. Saul's life was transformed when he started paying attention to God. Saul became Paul, the most zealous missionary of the early church. When there is a group of people, oftentimes there will be tension. The thing is, when we have attention, we always have an option. We think we know what will happen if we do this or they do that. But we don't know. Because as Christians, we're not in control of our future, are we? God is. And if love is not in our options, then God is not in our options. Let's pay attention to the tensions as they come. Let's stop and listen, and then we can respond to them with love and grace and forgiveness. And by doing so, God will transform this church into something that more than we could ever imagine it to be. The church gives us great opportunities to learn how to pay attention, doesn't it? How many times do we argue about matters of space? Who's doing what? And what needs to be done? How many times does someone feel alone and forgotten in the church? When the church pays attention to what God is doing, the church will be transformed. There will be misunderstandings, miscommunication, and things will fall through the cracks. But when we commit ourselves in trying to pay attention to what God is doing around us, we will pay attention to one another. Because paying attention to one another is a form of loving one another. And part of loving one another is allowing God's grace and forgiveness to glue us back together each time we fall apart. As a church, we have been called to pay attention. We know God has called us to love one another. The question is, how are we really doing? What if we use the same principles we talked about earlier to determine the answer to that question? Are we being completely honest with ourselves? Are we doing all we can do to make everyone in this church feel loved? What could we do to make our congregation feel more loved? Maybe right this minute God is nudging you to do something. There are so many things we can do to help make the people in our church family feel more included. Some of you are already doing a lot of things behind the scenes. The question is, do you need help? Are we paying attention to the needs of one another in our church? I ask you to pray about this. Next, every season of our life as a church is eventually a story we can tell. This church has many wonderful stories to tell about the things it's done. And we have many stories to make together ahead. Right now, you and I are embracing change together. Things are different for me, and things are different for you. And we're in the process of merging together. Are there tensions that need our attention? Of course. We're growing together. But if we're careful to pay attention to what God is doing in all this, if we pay attention to the tensions as they come, then stop and listen and respond to them with love and grace and forgiveness. God will transform us together into something bigger than we could ever imagine. We should never be satisfied where we are. The day we decide we're content on staying the way we are will be the day we stop paying attention to what God is doing around us. God is always moving, and He calls us to pay attention. Be ready. Only God knows how, when, where, and what is needed. My hope is that we will always strive to try to pay attention to what God is doing around us. And that God will bless us with incredible ways to reach out to our church family, to our sister churches, and to our community with God's love. Let's pray.